Welcome to Oxford News This Week. I'm Elgin Nichols. Co-anchor Terry Stiles is on special assignment. And in this week's local news, what? A pit bull running free in your neighborhood? And will there be new West Burdick Street road restrictions? Stay tuned and learn more about these stories and others. The Oxford News begins right now. Oakland County Sheriff's deputies were called to a construction site on Metamora Road where workers complained about a pit bull running loose in the area. The workers revealed to officers that the dog chased workers into the building and also would not allow other workers to come off the roof. Officers located the owner of the dog, who told officers they were having trouble keeping the dog confined. Deputies turned the report over to Animal Control for review and future action. Call was made to Oxford Village Police that a child could not be found and parents were afraid that he may have fallen into a sinkhole in the backyard of their West Church Street home. Upon initiation of the search, officers discovered that the child was safe at a neighbor's home. Oakland County officers received a complaint from a local business owner on Metamora Road that money was stolen. She informed officers that while her office was unlocked, someone entered the room and stole cash from her purse. The purse was located in a closed desk drawer, and officers provided a theft report number for future claims, and the case remains open. A domestic violence dispute between a man and his girlfriend living on State Street resulted in the man's arrest by Oakland County Sheriff's deputies. The woman agreed to file a complaint for assault, and the boyfriend was transported to Oakland County Jail, where he now remains in lieu of bond. Lakeville resident Patty Hatch believes that she may have a brother who is still living but has never met. Patty, who was interested in genealogy, started a quest to determine if her brother was still alive when told by her mother she gave birth to a baby boy born in 1944. The mother recalls nursing the baby at Grace Hospital in Detroit and that the baby appeared healthy, and shortly thereafter, however, she was told by staff that the baby died. Patty checked the death certificate and through a forensic expert found that the certificate was altered. She now believes that for some unknown reason, the baby may have been switched by a nurse or by a grieving mother who could have lost her own baby. Patty says that she won't quit looking for answers, but it may take her brother discovering through genetics testing that the family who raised him is not related. If we hear further developments in this story, we'll pass it on. The Oxford Village Council chambers were packed wall to wall with spectators during the September meeting. They were there to provide input, pro and con, to a new ordinance proposal and question, should an ordinance be enacted to restrict gravel and heavy truck traffic on the newly reconstructed West Burdick Street. The proposed new ordinance is in response to resident complaints of extreme noise, safety, and heavy wear to the new road caused by at least 25 multi-trailer big trucks per day. Under the proposed ordinance, a weight limit of 40 tons would be enforced, and trucks weighing less than 40 tons could only be on West Burdick Street between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. The average gravel truck is over 60 tons empty. Therefore, under the new ordinance, those trucks will never again be able to use the West Burdick Street access. Truck drivers who attended the meeting voiced concerns about their increased business cost and ability to stay in business if they have to use an alternate travel route. Residents pointed out that the dynamics of the village has changed. What was once a few trucks now are many. Residents voiced that times have changed and the village should move forward to protect their residential historical homes and property values. In making the decision, the majority of council members felt it was in the overall best interest of the council to reduce traffic volume and noise for village residents living in that area. The new ordinance was approved by a 3-2 majority vote, and the new ordinance takes effect in 20 days. Oxford firefighter Sergeant Blair Lockwood is doing something that will help to save a life. No, it's not rescuing someone from a burning building, and it's not giving life back to someone who has lost a heartbeat. Although he has done all of the above, the 35-year-old is preparing to donate stem cells from his blood to a woman suffering from leukemia. Blair is one of more than 11 million members of the Be the Match registry operated by the National Marrow Donor Program based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. If you are interested in being a donor, go to their website at marrow, marrow.org, and you could be just that special person to someone who needs help. Oxford News, that's it for this week. If you would like to learn more about these stories and others, stop by your local store and pick up a copy of the Oxford Leader newspaper. Coming up on OCTV, Oxford Local Sports with Andy Curtis, Oxford School News with John Ochins, and join us with Auto Talk and Science in the News with Dave Kinney. I'm Elgin Nichols. This is Oxford News This Week, where we are keeping your news closer to home. Thanks for watching.
High school football game night is a unique experience, uniting a community in so many ways and showcasing other school activities. This grand setting helps kids learn life skills and build lifetime relationships in the safest environment ever, where teacher coaches, equipment, rules, and safety protocols minimize risks. It's a true celebration of participation. Support your local school and its young people who enjoy this privilege.
Watch one of the longest running programs on OCTV, Our Community Access, every day at 9:30 and 5:30. Hosted and produced by Bill Service. Our Community Access, keeping it local.
All today on Our Community Access.
Welcome to this edition of Auto Talk. I'm Dave Kenny, and these stories are taken from the publication Automotive News. In our first story, Ford Motor Company has found the automated parking feature offered on several of its nameplates works pretty much as it's supposed to. The vehicles steer themselves into parallel parking spots, relieving owners of one of the most challenging and nerve-wracking driving maneuvers. The only hitch, drivers found it hard to get out of the tight spaces the cars were able to get into. At the World Congress on Intelligent Transport Systems, Ford is touting a solution. The 2015 Ford Edge will be able to both park and unpark itself. The vehicle, due in showrooms in March, will be available, that is, with a technology package that includes a host of safety features, including an improved automated parking capability, a company spokesman said. Like current nameplates, an Edge with the feature can take over the steering when parking a curbside parallel parking space. The driver must control the throttle and the brake, however. But the new Edge can also take over the steering to get itself out of such situations and can handle perpendicular parking, such as at a supermarket. The crossover uses an array of sensors to measure distances to parked cars and the curb, and to calculate the proper way to turn and back into a parking space. 4 ultrasonic sensors on the front of the vehicle and 6 in the rear use sound waves to detect objects and obstacles. In addition to the parking aids, the new Edge with the technology option will also include lane keeping technology and adaptive cruise control using long-range and mid-range radar on the front and a forward-looking camera to scan road markings. Is there going to be much left for the driver to do? In our next story, the 2016 Mercedes-AMG GT two-door, the second vehicle developed by the brand's in-house performance arm, goes on sale in the U.S. next April. The mid-engine, rear-wheel drive Mercedes-AMG GT is expected to be priced at about $120,000 to start saving and compete with the Porsche 911 and the new BMW i8 plug-in hybrid. The range-topping 503 horsepower GTS is the first model headed to the U.S. The entry GT with the 456 horsepower goes on sale a year later in 2016. Both are powered by an AMG V8 bi-turbo with turbochargers inside the engine V rather than the outside. The GT also features an aluminum space frame, a 7-speed dual-clutch transmission, a sport suspension with an aluminum double wishbone, and a 47 to 53 front-to-rear weight distribution. The GTS accelerates from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 3.7 seconds and has a top speed, not in Michigan, of 193 miles per hour. Control buttons are stacked in a V-like layout above the center console. To achieve a race car feel, the button for starting the engine is labeled Engine Stop Start and lights up in red. The chassis, greenhouse, and body are made from aluminum alloy, and the trunk lid is steel, and the radiator core support is made from magnesium. More than 90% of the space frame uses aluminum components. The body shell weighs 509 pounds, which, according to Mercedes, is a benchmark figure in the sports car segment. The GT will be produced at the Mercedes factory in Sindelfingen, Germany. The 4-liter V8 bi-turbo engine will be made by Mercedes-AMG in Aftelbach, Germany. I mispronounced that, and there you go. Buick dealers, in our next story, Buick dealers recently were given a sneak peek at the Buick-badged Opel Cascada convertible, which is slated for a U.S. launch in late 2015 as a 2016 model. Dealers were shown the drop top at a business meeting in suburban Detroit in mid-August, according to 2 people who attended. A General Motors spokesman declined to comment. The sources said that the 2-door, 4-seat car appears to be nearly identical with the Opel version, which rides on the same platform as the Buick Verano compact sedan, but is an inch longer and wider. Cascada is Spanish for waterfall, and the car has a folding soft-top roof, which we hope doesn't leak. GM officials did not discuss the car's powertrain lineup, and in Europe it is powered by a 1.4-liter turbocharged gasoline engine, a 1.6-liter turbo, and a 2-liter diesel. GM executives have dropped hints about adding the Cascada to the Buick's U.S. lineup without committing to the idea. And on the recall front, Toyota Motor Corporation is recalling 130,000 2014 Tundra pickup trucks to correct a problem with the side airbags. An incorrectly installed piece of trim on the vehicle's center pillar could interfere with the deployment of the side airbags in a crash, according to Toyota Motor Company Sales USA. Toyota said it is not aware of any injuries or fatalities related to the condition, and the name of the airbag supplier was not made public. No supplier was mentioned in the defect information report because the issue is based on the work procedure and inspection process, Toyota spokesman John Hansen said in an email. Well, that's all for this edition of Auto Talk. I'm Dave Kenny, and as always, may the wind be at your back as you cruise down life's highways. Stay tuned to Oxford Community Television, and we'll be right back.
You are watching the Michigan American Legion's Station of the Year for the 5th year in a row, Oxford Community Television.
I remember the moment.
I'll never forget that moment.
That changed my life.
At that moment, it hit me. This is why I joined the Guard. We're soldiers, always ready to protect our country. But we've also got communities. Family, friends, neighbors who count on us. I couldn't believe it. I just saved a life to somebody from my hometown.
See what it means to be a citizen soldier at NationalGuard.com.
Watch My Life with John Oceans weekdays at 10 and 5. Catch some of the great stories and folks from Addison and Oxford Townships, keeping it local.
I'm John Ochins, and welcome to the Oxford Wildcats School Update. It was a busy night for the Oxford School Board last night as former middle school principal Ken Weaver was welcomed in as the new Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum. He replaces Dr. Jim Schwarz, who takes over as Superintendent of the Avondale School District. Oxford Superintendent Dr. William Skilling had a few words for the departing Dr. Schwarz.
But I just wanted to say a couple of words. How much I appreciated everything you've done, Jim. I couldn't have inherited a better person in the curriculum instructional role. And I've said this many times, but a lot of people confuse the importance of vision versus execution. Vision is much easier to come up with. Execution and making it happen, that's where the genius lies. And this is what Jim did. He took all of the ideas that we came up with in our shared vision, as a community, a school district, and he had made it happen. And so I'll always be grateful for that. The students have benefited greatly for that. And you're leaving a very, very strong legacy. And so I just want to thank you for all you've done for this district. And you made my job a lot easier as a result. And I know you're going to be an outstanding, exemplary superintendent.
Schwarz has been with the district since 1998. Ken Weaver, Schwarz's successor, has been with the Oxford District for 11 years. He was assistant principal of Oxford High for 3 years before moving on to be principal of Oxford Middle School for 8. Among Ken's first duties will be moving forward current district initiatives in intervention planning, getting the Lucy Calkins literacy program underway, IB reauthorization, and many more. We wish him well. A number of Lakeville Elementary parents showed up at the meeting to make known their concern about 4th grade class size. Here's what one of them had to say.
I volunteer all the time at the school, and so I know these children. I know their needs. I work at the school as a new aide. I work there as a parapro, and I've also been I worked in the library all as a substitute. But when I'm there, I get to know the children very well, and I know that there's a lot of behavioral issues, and there's a lot of IEPs. There's different things, but Lakeville is very unique. We're transient. We have constant change. One of the things I found out through Blessings, when I talked to Paula and Anne Marie over at Leonard, I said, how many kids should I expect to come in and out of the program for Blessings throughout the year? And they're like, none, which really surprised me. And that's when I learned that it's different in Lakeville. It's a different environment, and it can't really easily be compared to the other schools.
The parents contend they have gone through all the steps with this issue, and presenting it to the school board was next in order to get a satisfactory resolution. Lindsay House is a counselor in the high school. She also heads the after-school academic program known as ASAP. Lindsay explains the program and how it's growing this year.
We started last year as a pilot program with ASAP. We had volunteer teachers after school who stayed and were available to be grouped off in these mentor groups where each teacher was responsible for a number of students. They would get their grade and progress reports every single week and would have a lot of relationship building time with these students to be able to mentor them, to be able to say, well, biology was really low last week. It looks like you've turned some things in and things are better this week. So they always had this sense of accountability, a sense of relationship building that they had with their particular mentor teacher. The end of the year came and we realized that we felt like it just wasn't enough, that we needed more. The kids were surveyed, the parents were surveyed, the teachers were surveyed, and everyone felt collectively like we needed more time with the students. So we've revamped and things are looking a little differently this year. We will run on Mondays, we will run a full hour of services for the kids where they will have a half hour that they'll be grouped off in groups of 5, 6, or 7 with a mentor teacher.
I'm gonna go get some lunch.
That time will all be spent just relationship building with that teacher and student. They'll be held accountable with their grades as well. So they'll get grade reports every week and they'll be held accountable to that teacher. They'll spend about 30 minutes doing that, and then they will have the remainder of that time will be 30 minutes of spending instructional time. So our teachers will take off groups and they'll be doing instructional time on study skills or test taking. We'll do some college prep things with them during that time. During the mentor group, that mentor lab, that teacher will then say to them, you're going to go to the science lab on your day that you come for tutoring. So, or you're going to go to the math lab, depending on how their grades are that week. They'll be assigned to a lab for the next day that they stay after. So Tuesday and Wednesday will be full hours of lab days where the students are able to meet in labs with teachers to do test retake, to do assignments, to do reteaching, things like that will go on based on subject area for the students to spend an hour doing that.
That was Counselor Lindsay House. That's the school news for this week. Please join Dave Kenny with Science in the News and Wildcat Sports after that. This is Oxford Community Television, keeping it local.
Discover the wonderful surprises of local shopping. Watch Let's Take a Walk with Susan Bork or Andy Curtis, weekdays at 10:30 and 6:30 keeping it local. You're watching Oxford Community Television, keeping it local.
Yeah.
I'm Andy Curtis, and this is your Oxford Sports Update. Well, the steamroller that is Wildcat football improved to 3-0 with an impressive 56-20 win over OAA rival Troy Athens on Friday. Now leading the Oxford offensive onslaught was Scott Stubenrosch, who rushed for an impressive 195 yards on 20 carries with 2 touchdowns. Adding to the fun was John Patrick, who also had 2 rushing touchdowns, and Anson Rowley, Matthew Harris, Brendan Lewis, who all chipped in with 1 rushing touchdown each. Now, it wasn't just the ground game that put a hurt on the Athenians. Cat QB Glacier Wallington went 3 for 7 with 67 yards and 1 passing touchdown to William Home. Now, thanks to Ken Swart for the Oakland Press for providing the pictures from Friday's game. Up next for the Wildcats, they invite the mistake by the Lake Orion Dragons into the comfy confines of Wildcat Stadium for this season's installment of the heated crosstown rivalry. And of course, OCTV Sports will be there covering all the action this Friday. Now, the football field wasn't the only place Oxford beat down on Troy Athens over the week, with the varsity girls swim team taking first place over the Red Hawks last Thursday, and standout Wildcat Janie Bukinski scoring an impressive 231.85 to set a new school diving record. Other winners were Taylor Curtis taking the 200-meter freestyle, Allison Miller taking first in the 50-meter freestyle, and Bella Ginola winning the 100-meter butterfly with an impressive time of 1 minute and 6.20 seconds. All right, so now let's jump over to our beloved local pro teams, starting with the good news. And finally, the good news means the Tigers, who are playing like the Tigers should be, sweeping the visiting Indians of Cleveland over the weekend and taking a nice 1.5 game first place lead in the AL Central. The game Sunday was favoring Cleveland until the 7th inning when Ian Kinsler, who's only homered twice since July, rocketed a 2-run blast to propel the Tigers to a 6-4 win. On the opposite side of things, though, Sunday, the same old Lions lost like the same old Lions usually do, 24-7 in Carolina to the Panthers, with Stafford only going 27 for 48 and 291 yards and 1 touchdown. The running game really never got established, and drafted kicker Nate Freese missed 2 49-yard field goals, making him now an impressive 0-3 on kicks between 40 and 49 yards, and putting the Lions at a 1-1 record for the young season. Some good news, though, is I won my fantasy football game this weekend, making me 2-0 and seated firmly in the early elite ranks of my league. Now for today's sports vocab word of the day. Intentional grounding. Intentional grounding is when the passer who is looking at potential sack or other loss of yardage throws a pass without a realistic chance of completion. Now, this won't be called if the quarterback is out of the pocket and throws a pass that lands beyond the line of scrimmage. Now, I am Andy Curtis, and remember, you can catch all of our broadcasts of your favorite Oxford High School games between 1 and 6 right here at OCTV, or check us out online under the programs section of OCCTV.org. And as I remind you every week, this is your community station, so if you have a sports idea, shoot us an email at andrewcurtis23@gmail.com and put OCTV Sports in the subject line. That was all the sports news you need to know. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.
Don't miss Schooling Around with John Ochins, weekdays at 11 in the morning and 10 at night, keeping it local.
I'm going back to school, no more vacation, I gotta get myself.
Well,
Welcome to Science in the News. I'm Dave Kenny, and these stories are taken from the publication New Scientist. In our first story, moonwalking astronauts often lost their balance, but they weren't clumsy. It was gravity's fault. It turns out that the moon's gravity is not enough to help them distinguish up from down. Lawrence Harris of York University in Toronto and his colleagues spun volunteers on a giant rotating arm to simulate different strength gravitational fields. As the volunteers spun, they saw images of a landscape or the letter P, which they read as P or D, depending on which way they felt was up. The study shows that humans need to feel at least 15% of the gravitational force of Earth to figure out which way is up. The moon's gravity is 17% of Earth's, but it is also a strange environment. Low gravity and unusual scenery explain why astronauts fell down, even though they didn't report feeling out of sorts. It's good news for future missions to Mars, where astronauts will experience gravity about 38% that of Earth. Knowing which way is up will help Mars visitors stay safe, correctly estimate the angle of hills, or turn the correct way towards an escape hatch. It could also be of use for more prosaic purposes. Suppose you have a North American-style light switch where pressing the top button on the switch indicates on. If we don't know which way is up off Earth, how do we know if the switch is on or off, says Harris's colleague Michael Jenkin. He says, of all the challenges associated with manned missions to Mars, the gravity field should provide a sufficiently strong clue to allow for a good sense of the direction of up. And over in Norway, in the Norwegian Arctic, what looks like a series of huge metallic spiderwebs is strewn through a 1.5-kilometer swath of the Bardufoss forests. But the network of steel acoustic pipes are actually infrasound detectors gently probing the ground for any rumbles below 20 hertz, and that's beyond human hearing, that might signify a nuclear detonation. The array is one of 60 such stations in 35 countries that make up the International Monitoring System for the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty. In addition to nuclear blasts, the station will be able to pinpoint the location of volcanic activity, help map the path of meteors blazing through the atmosphere, monitor extreme weather events, and perhaps predict tsunamis. And from nuclear explosions to your morning coffee. It gets you up in the morning and helps you power through the day. Now coffee aficionados have been armed with a new tool in their quest for the perfect cup, the coffee genome. Scientists have sequenced the genome of the Beta Robusta coffee bean, uncovering many of the genes involved in making caffeine and aromas. Armed with this knowledge, growers and blenders could make higher quality, tastier varieties of coffees and help to protect the plants against climate change and disease. It's like someone turned on the light, says Tim Schilling, Executive Director of World Coffee Research, a scientific collaboration formed by the coffee industry and based at Texas A&M University. He says coffee lovers could see the impacts of this scientific feat in around 5 years. For example, the caffeine level. Coffee scientists have been hunting for years for a low caffeine coffee that tastes as good as high caffeine varieties, and the genome could help make one. The Robusta genome includes a cluster of genes likely to be involved in making caffeine. The expression of these genes, which code for enzymes called N-methyltransferases, could be in theory tweaked to alter the caffeine content of the coffee, says Philippe Lacherme of the Institute of Research and Development in Montpellier, France, and a leader in the sequencing project. Christopher Hendon of the University of Bath suggests boosting the caffeine content of the Robusta bean. You could substitute less Robusta in the same blend and get the same amount of caffeine, says Hendon. Non-specialty coffee could then include more Arabica, which would taste better without losing its punch. And in Iceland, this is pretty hot stuff. A swirling 1-kilometer high tornado of gas has been caught emerging from the lava pouring out of a fissure on Iceland's Bardarbunga volcano. It's not entirely clear what is causing the tornado, says Fred Prada of Nykarnika Aviation in Kjeller, Norway. The generation mechanism is probably the same as that for dust devils, but in this case, the tornado funnel is most likely filled with sulfuric dioxide, gas, and volcanic ash, he says. Wow. Well, that's it for this edition of Science in the News. I'm Dave Kenny. Stay tuned to Oxford Community Television, and we'll be right back after this.
You're watching Oxford Community Television, keeping it local.